Ever get stuck talking to someone and you feel like, like you're just kind of nodding along, but secretly you're just dying to escape?
Yeah.
That's what we're diving into today. Talkativeness.
Oh,
We're
interesting.
going to unpack like why some people just talk so much, how to set boundaries without being rude, and even how communication skills can make you successful.
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with this, so
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to dive in.
Absolutely. And we've got some interesting sources to help us out with this.
Yeah.
We've got this article from Happy Hacks with some good advice,
Okay.
a cool YouTube video about communication and success, and even a Merriam-Webster dictionary definition to really
Okay.
define what it means to be talkative.
I like it.
Yeah, so let's jump right in with that definition. What does it really mean to be loquacious?
Okay, so Merriam-Webster says loquacious means tending to talk a great deal. Talkative.
Okay, pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's got to be more to it than that, right?
Definitely. It can have like a negative connotation. Like if you think about it, someone who talks excessively,
Right.
but it can also describe someone who is really articulate and expressive.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like the same word could be good or bad?
Exactly.
Like I'm imagining a really good speaker
Right.
who can hold a whole audience's attention
Yeah.
versus like someone who just won't stop talking at dinner.
Exactly. And it really comes down to like not just how much they're talking, but what they're saying.
Oh, okay.
For example, someone who's garrulous might just be rambling on, but someone who's voluble, they just talk a lot, but in a way that can actually be pretty charming.
So you're saying that how we describe talkative people can actually tell us something about like our own opinions?
Yeah, exactly.
Danny feels pretty neutral,
Yeah,
but garrulous sounds kind of judgmental, doesn't it?
totally.
Makes you think about like how these labels might affect the way we even approach a conversation.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think we could go down a rabbit hole thinking about that.
Yeah, definitely.
But maybe we should get back to like why some people just talk a lot in the first place.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that. Our YouTube video mentioned a few reasons, and one that I thought was interesting was this idea that some people talk a lot because they're lonely, or maybe not so good at reading social cues.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like maybe they just really want to connect with people, or they don't realize that, maybe other people want to talk too.
Hmm.
It's interesting because, sometimes there's a lot more going on than we realize.
Totally. And our article from Happy Hacks also pointed out that some people are just like naturally more talkative,
Right.
like extroverts. They actually get energy from talking to people.
Yeah, everyone's different.
Exactly.
And what might feel like way too much talking for one person might be like totally normal for someone else.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So how do we deal with these different communication styles, especially when, someone's
Right.
just talking and talking?
Well, that's where those strategies come in, like from Happy Hatch. They had some good tips for setting boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
Without being rude.
Like, I really like that time limit tactic they talked about.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
Basically, you just let the person know up front that you only have a certain amount of time to talk.
Oh, okay.
It's a way of, like, managing expectations from the beginning.
That's a good idea. Like what would be a good example of that?
Like, imagine you're at a networking event,
Mm-hmm.
and you meet someone who just starts telling you, like, all about their weekend fishing trip.
Okay, yeah.
You could just be like, hey, it's been great talking to you,
Right.
but I got to go meet some other people or something like that.
Oh, I see.
It's just a way of being polite, but also setting a boundary.
Yeah, I like that. It's like you're saying, I respect your time, but I also have to respect mine. It's a good way to keep things moving.
And Happy Hacks also had this tip they call the validation maneuver, which I thought was really smart.
Oh, tell me more about that one.
It's basically like you listen to the person, ask questions, and really try to make them feel heard,
Okay.
but you do it within that time limit you already set.
Oh, okay. So it's like you're showing them respect,
Right.
but also like keeping things under control.
Exactly.
That's a good balance.
Yeah. It's all about finding that sweet spot, like you're present in the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also protecting your own energy and time.
That makes sense. But what about those times when like those little hints aren't enough?
Right.
Like what do you do then?
That's when I think that assertive exit comes in handy.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
It's just like being direct, but still polite.
Okay.
You could say something like, it was great talking to you, but I really need to head out now.
Right.
Or, oh no, I'm running late for another appointment.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's about like making it clear that the conversation's over, but without making the other person feel bad.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's direct, but not mean.
Exactly.
That's a good skill to have.
For sure. It's kind of like you're giving them a way out,
Yeah, totally. And, sometimes being direct like that can actually be helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if the person, like, really isn't good at picking up on those subtle cues.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, like if they're always being told they talk too much, maybe they just need a little, a little help knowing when to stop.
Right, right. It's kind of like a kindness in disguise.
Exactly. But anyway, shifting gears a little bit here.
Okay.
Both Happy Hacks and that YouTube video talked about how important self-care is.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Especially when you're dealing with, people who talk a lot.
It's so true. Like, it can be really draining.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
Happy Hacks had all these suggestions for things you can do to, like, recharge your batteries.
Mm-hmm. Like what?
Things like meditation or
Yeah.
spending time on your hobbies. Or
Yeah.
just connecting with other people who, make you feel good.
Right. It's all about like taking care of yourself,
Mhm.
making sure you're not running on empty.
Yeah.
And that YouTube video we talked about earlier, the one about communication and success,
Yeah.
they had a really interesting perspective on this. They were talking about the importance of like building solid relationships and how having a diverse group of friends and, people in your life
Right.
can really help you feel supported and not so overwhelmed by any one person's communication style.
I love that idea. Like, it's not just about managing individual conversations.
Right.
It's about, like, building a whole network of people who bring different things to the table.
Exactly. And it's interesting because that video also talked about how, people often think that being a good communicator means just talking a lot.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
But they were saying that's not really true at all.
Oh, okay.
They said that real communication mastery is about things like active listening, empathy, and being able to express yourself clearly.
So it's not just about the quantity of words, it's about the quality, right?
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. And it makes me think, like, even people who are considered loquacious could benefit from those skills, too.
Totally. And actually, you know what that video suggested?
What?
Reading aloud for 30 minutes every day.
Oh, wow, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, they said it can help you become more aware of your own voice and how you sound.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it expands your vocabulary and just exposes you to different ways of using language.
So it's kind of like you're training yourself to be a better communicator overall.
Exactly. And the more you read and learn, the more you'll have to actually talk about when you do speak up,
Right, so it's not just about talking less. It's
Yeah.
about, like, filling your mind with interesting things.
Yeah, and the video even talked about the importance of demonstrating knowledge.
What does that mean?
Like, it's not just about sharing your opinions.
Okay.
It's about being able to back up your ideas with facts and, well-reasoned arguments.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's about actually adding something to the conversation.
Exactly, making it valuable for everyone involved.
That's a really cool way to think about it.
Yeah, and it reminds us that communication is a two-way street, Like, even if you're not the one doing most of the talking, you can still be an active participant.
Right, like by listening carefully,
Mm-hmm.
asking good questions,
Yep.
and then, sharing your own thoughts when the time is right.
Exactly. And, at the end of the day, effective communication isn't about, like, silencing other people.
Right.
Or making them talk the way you want them to talk.
It's about finding a way to connect, right?
Yeah, to understand each other and learn from each other.
Even when our communication styles are totally different.
Exactly.
So as we're wrapping up here,
Yeah.
what are some key takeaways that our listeners can, like, start using right away?
Well, first of all, just remember that there are all sorts of different ways to communicate.
Right.
And what might seem like too much talking to you might be totally normal for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about judging people.
Okay.
It's about trying to understand, why they communicate the way they do.
Right.
And then figuring out how to handle those conversations in a way that works for you.
And we've got those great strategies from Happy Hacks, like
Yeah.
the time limit tactic,
Mm-hmm.
the validation maneuver,
Yes.
and the assertive exit.
Those are all really good tools.
And don't forget about self-care.
Yeah, that's super
So
important.
especially when, you're spending time with someone who talks a lot.
Make sure you're doing things to recharge your own batteries.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that balance,
Yeah.
between being kind and respectful to others,
Mm-hmm.
but also taking care of yourself.
Totally.
But before we go, we have one last question for you to think about. So think about the most talkative person. That person who just loves to chat.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think maybe they just would, like, really want to connect with people?
Yeah, could be.
Or maybe they're, like, super excited to share all their ideas and they just can't help themselves?
Right. Or maybe they're just not, like, super aware of how much they're talking.
Yeah, it could be any of those things.
Exactly. And it's not about, judging them or anything.
Right.
It's just about, like, understanding where they're coming from.
And then, like, having some tools to help you manage those conversations.
Yeah, exactly. We've got all those great tips from Happy Hacks. And
Right.
I think the most important thing is just to, like, approach those conversations with empathy.
Mm-hmm. Like, put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah, and remember that everyone communicates differently.
For sure.
And at the end of the day, we're all just trying to, connect with each other and be understood.
That's such a good point.
Yeah, whether we're the ones doing all the talking or the ones trying to, like, politely make our escape,
Absolutely.
we're all just figuring it out as we go.
Well said. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of talkativeness.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground.
We did, and hopefully gave our listeners some useful tools to take with them.
For sure.
So until next time, happy conversing, everyone.